All right, so welcome back to another episode of Paradigm Podcast. We hope you're having a great day. Thanks for clicking on this video of all the things you could be doing. We're grateful that you're here to spend a little bit of time here with us. So before we get started, we want to urge you to subscribe, like the channel, like the video, and drop a comment down below. And all the information about following us will be down in the description below. So we're starting a new book, right? This is a brand new book we're doing. This was chosen by David. We discussed a little bit at the end of the, I believe it was Rule 12, right? We talked a little bit about why we chose this book, but let's cover a little bit of that here today as well.
Yeah, so just to go over why I chose this book as the next one that we would read is because I have a good friend named Johnny Hernandez. Shout out to him. He's a great real estate agent, a phenomenal real estate agent, and he's killing it in Fresno and all over the Central Valley under the Leo Nolasco group. He is, I consider him a really close friend and just a sort of a mentor in a way. And he put me onto this book and he said I should read it. And it's about this guy named Napoleon Hill, and we'll get into him in a little bit, interviewing the devil. And then the devil is basically showing some things that he's looking for when he's trying to, I guess, operate in the world and be the devil to, men and women or everybody. He's putting on he's looking for different types of fears within people. And Johnny always would talk about it. He said he listened to the audiobook, which there is an audiobook version, and you can kind of hear the devil personified and get into some pretty interesting discussions.
Yeah, that's actually a good reason as to why this was a pretty controversial book. It seems like the books we read always have some sort of controversy, but this one here had a controversy as well about, he didn't even want to drop the book.
Yeah.
Because he didn't want to be exiled from, it was church related, right?
Yeah.
I believe that's what it was. But yeah, the family didn't drop this book till 56 years later after he passed.
Right.
And so I guess it was too controversial for Napoleon Hill's time. So it's a pretty interesting book. I think we can all agree we were interested in it. So today we're going to be talking about chapter 1, and it's titled My First Meeting with Andrew Carnegie. So we actually have two different editions of the book. So there's an edited and an unedited version. And
right.
So I think it's interesting that we're going to have this. There's things that your book has that mine might not, and vice versa. So we might actually hit on some of that, and it might bring up some good discussion. So did you want to jump right into how would you just describe the chapter, what happened? I got it right here. So first...
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so first, Napoleon Hill describes meeting Andrew Carnegie and the task that he was given by him. He was tasked with creating philosophy of individual achievement and failure through interviewing successful and failures of men and women. In the experience of conversing with Andrew Carnegie, he held on to choice words given to him by Mr. Carnegie. You will discover that the cause of success is not something separate and apart from the men. It is a force so intangible in nature that the majority of men never recognize it, a force which might properly be called the other self. These words were inscribed into the psyche of Napoleon Hill from that point on. Mr. Carnegie also told Napoleon Hill, "My experience has taught me that a man is never quite so near success as when that which he calls failure has overtaken him, for it is on occasions of this sort that he is forced to think. If he thinks accurately and with persistence, he discovers that so-called failure usually is nothing more than a signal to rearm himself with a new plan or purpose. Most real failures are due to limitations which men set up in their own minds. Mm-hmm. If they had the courage to go one step further, they would discover their error." After his meetings with Andrew Carnegie, Napoleon Hill still didn't have the slightest idea of what Mr. Carnegie meant by the term other self. So Napoleon Hill continued his work, but consistently pursued happiness over purpose by distracting himself with various businesses. All of these businesses ended in failure or non-completion. Due to this, he became purposeless and spent time processing what it is needed. What is he needed to change in order to be happy in his life. Through his purposelessness and time of processing, Napoleon Hill was finally able to meet his other self.
Right.
And so let's describe what the other self is.
Yeah.
What do you guys take?
The other self is what's being described in this chapter. What I took from it was that it's the version of yourself that operates from the fear or a faith-based entity rather than a fear-based entity, right? In our lives, we can operate on fear, and then we can operate on faith. And there, in this chapter, Napoleon Hill has a turning point where he sort of recognizes and analyzes his own self to bring out that voice of the faith-based version of Napoleon Hill rather than the fear one.
Yeah. I would say, that's a good understanding of it, I guess, to define what the other self is. I think it's a higher version of yourself. It's I think today what we hear the most people say is the best version of who you are.
Right.
Like that, most people say that. Mm-hmm. I think it's just having an ultimate belief or ultimate faith in where you're going and the guidance of like the path you chose. Like there is no real guidance based on a logical approach. Like just because you replicate someone else doing something that you saw them do doesn't mean it's going to work for you. And I think that's why most people have faith in what they're doing, because their purpose is a lot stronger than like any success they may see like short term. I think that's what's helped me like just get through like trying to like the hurdles of like say entrepreneurship. It's kind of hard to like continue to do stuff that's not working because you don't see anything from it, but you don't know it's not working, but you have to go through that. It's just having ultimate faith in yourself, the people you're around, the life you're curating.
Yeah, I think he mentions as well, living in the other self. It's between your people usually operate in a fear-based life, right?
Right.
And the other self is accepting the responsibility of a faith-based life, where you have faith in what you're doing and you pursue that full-heartedly.
Yeah.
And so he actually mentions throughout the chapter, the other self embodies like a commanding spirit. It was telling him, hey, you need to do this, in a commanding tone. It wasn't like, hey, maybe you should go do this. It was like, go do this.
Yeah.
So if you've had that in your brain, something coming up and be like, hey, you need to do this, then that's usually the other self maybe dropping a command like, hey, it's time to go handle some business.
Yeah.
Yep.
I think most of us, I would like to believe that most of us have that. We have that voice like, oh, well, you have to go do this. But what happens is the other self gets like quieted. The faith voice gets quieted because the fear is so loud that like, oh, well, what if I don't succeed at it? Like, fuck it, I don't want to do it.
It's the leading, whatever self is the one that's like kind of at the forefront is making all the decisions, or that's where you're kind of, you know what I mean? But the other version of yourself is close by waiting to step in.
Yeah.
I
always think of John when it comes to this. Like, it's just like in Whitney, I think he was like, hey, you have the walkie? And I was like, it's in my bag, right? And he's like, all right, well, looks like you have to do it, right? Like, let's get to it. And just that split-second decision, when the command comes in, don't let your like mind come in and be like, well, this and well, that. If something in your head is like, get it done, listen to it, get to handling it right now. Take the backpack off and look for the walkie. John, what anything that you take away from the other self?
I guess I kind of took it as just like the intuition that you have, you know? And like, do you guys ever feel like you get commands from yourself? Like it's kind of just like a whisper inside you?
Yeah, that was actually a question I had for you guys, because I have the annotated version of the book.
Annotated version?
Is it the annotated version?
Yeah, you're good. No, it's just the way you said it. Was
oh, sorry, John. Annotated by Sharon Lecter, and this one has some questions that kind of like ask the reader when you're reading along with his manuscript. Like one question was, have you ever been in a position where like kind of John said, as that voice came out of you, or have you been paralyzed by fear so much to where you became shameful of your own fear? And that fear entity is like kind of it's at the forefront of your mind right now.
Yeah.
I don't think of anything big.
Yeah, nothing big. Like, I kind of want to like answer like, because I feel like there's somewhat the same question. Like back to what John was asking. Like, do you have that small voice or that whisper? It's like almost your instinct. It's like your gut telling you something. But I recognize that, and especially if I deny it or reject it as if it's not there, I get that like horrible gut feeling that I was supposed to do that. And I have like that form of regret and fear starts to come in because I knew I was that feeling that was telling me like, go do this, but I didn't do it. It was like, that's where that starts to kick in. But
Shame.
Shame. Sort of like that would be the way to define it. But as far as like a voice that like, it's hard to think of anything big like that, like I guess changed my life or like made me like regret something and I still regret it to this day. Like there's nothing like that in my life currently. But I think it's like temporary things that come and go that are like, damn, I wish I would have did this or wish I would have done that.
Yeah. I think even something just little. Go ahead, John.
I was going to say like just today, it's raining where I'm at right now. And
Hurricane Ian.
It's not bad over here. But anyway.
Oh, okay.
Like I was going to go for a walk with Ace on this trail. I like walking in the rain because there's not a lot of people out there.
Yeah.
And like, I was like 10 steps away from my car, and like, in this voice in my head was like, "It'd be way cooler if you ran." And then like, I like went back to my car and took off all the extra layers that I had on to be comfortable while walking.
Yeah.
And then me and Ace ended up running like 4 miles, and I was like, that was pretty sick. You
nice.
know? But like, and literally I was like, there you go. You know, like I was talking. You should run. It'd be way cooler if you did this instead of that. And
right.
Like, you're right. Like, it is way better for me if I would run. You know.
Yeah.
Nice. Yeah. I forget what book I read it in, but it said, "Are you listening to your inner genius, or are you listening to your mediocre mind?"
Ooh,
And that kind of I feel like is similar in line with what's going on in this book.
Right.
For me, with the question about do I ever have that inner voice, yes, I do, but I give it time to sit. So
yeah.
And even something just little like, so good news on my master's front, I got access to private land where I can go look at more area to cover, right?
Yeah,
it's a lot of land. So she said, yeah, you can come take a look at I got an email. So I was like, I'm excited,
Nice.
you know? But for a while it was like, in order to get in contact with that person, I needed to send a letter, right? I knew the land, the address. I looked up on Onyx Hunting. You can get who owns the land, all their information. And so I sent them three letters to 3 different people. I heard back from one, but just to send the letter was like, it was like, do it. But it's like, why did I wait so damn long? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Even just little things like that, it was like, what if they say no? Well, then, you know?
You don't know.
Then who knows, you know?
Yeah.
So even just little things like when I think of, is there that other one, when it comes to big stuff, I feel like I move, you know? But when it comes to the little things that build into the big things, I'll have some pushback.
Yeah, me too.
That's where that pushback comes from.
Yeah, because it's like, it doesn't feel like it's, not that it's not urgent, but it just feels like it could be delayed for some reason.
And that's what you should be doing, you know?
That, I think a good example for me, this made me think of when me and John and Devin were on Whitney in the blizzard that we refer to a lot. And it was a little scary. At one point, it was like, you know, it didn't feel safe to keep going. But I remember being on the rock with John, and we came up with the plan right there. It was like, I think we were listening to the version of ourselves that didn't want to quit. And John, I remember when we were walking, he's like, things are going a little crazy. And then I just hear John from the back of me and Devin. He's like, yo, you guys are tough. You guys are the coolest, or you guys are the toughest people I know. And then we were all like, yeah, let's keep going. And, you know.
Y'all a bunch of farm animals.
Right. Sharon Lecter in this one part of the chapter, you know, says, remember that time you wanted to quit, but something drove you to keep going? It may have been your other self.
John's the other self.
John's the other self. John's self.
Killed it, dude. Hell yeah. So that's like how commanding it can be, you know?
Yeah.
Some other qualities I kind of grabbed from, on page 26 in my book, it said, it gets you away from your inferiority complex. I thought that was really good too, because inadequacy, right? Like everybody experiences, especially if you're trying something new and something that's hard, like a craft that you're developing for life. You feel inferior to the people that you're following behind, right? But you get away from that. You live in faith where you're like, I can do this, right?
Yeah.
This is something I can do. Yeah, it's going to have some growing pains, but I'm not going to be inferior someday as long as I keep hustling, keep working hard. You have to have faith in order to do that you can do that. So it gets you away from that inferiority complex that we all experience in different ways.
Yeah. It's
Yeah.
like, cause I remember where he mentions this, and it's just a annotation by the co-author. I don't even know the annotator. She subquotes like the worst of all human ailments is, or she doesn't say is, it just says indecision. And I think that's what like is rooted in all of this is like, you have that voice that's command, like unless you build, because in this book, it feels like it jumps around a little bit. When it gets to that commanding part where he starts to hear voices and he starts to just act on it.
Mm-hmm.
It's, to me, when I was reading this, it felt like it just jumped into that. I think most, at least for myself, maybe I'm just generalizing a lot of people, but I would imagine that most people have to build that voice up. Not the voice, it's the action behind the voice. Like if you hear that voice maybe 20 times, you're taking action. 15 times, now it's 15, and you're hitting that.
You're building that habit.
And 5, and now you just hear it one time and you're taking action. I think the fear element of the fear mentality, that inferiority mindset is set in indecision because you don't have faith in anything. So you believe that everything, quote unquote,
haven't decided.
Yeah, you're gonna fail, and so you're not confident. Like, and you haven't planted your flag, or you haven't planted all feet and be like, I'm standing here regardless if I'm failing, succeeding. I'm going through. I'm moving up the hill. Stumble forward. So I think.
I think one of the reasons why like it seemed like it was so quick to him, like we kind of glossed over it, but like before this guy, it was the number one success. He invented self-help books in America. He's like the first guy to make like a self-help book, and like he had a successful career, and he would go around teaching people, here's the 17 rules of success.
Right.
And then he had this tragic thing happen to him where he like lived a year in his life in fear, and he felt so deflated because he was like, was my life a lie? Like for years now, I've been telling people, here's the 17 easy steps how to become successful, and I'm a fucking loser. You know, like I can't even follow them right now. Like, has my whole life been a lie? And then once he got the momentum, like he already had the skills. He kind of just like he had this analysis. He just had like paralysis of like everything. You know?
Right.
Yeah.
So I think like once the ball was rolling, this guy knew how to be successful. He was just shocked when like if he would have stopped there, he would have been a loser. But he kept going. So like the story continues. You know.
Right.
Yeah. True. Very true.
Every hero has his trials and tribulations, right?
For sure.
You know, we can look at them all across different times. That's cool.
Yeah.
So on that, it says here I also grabbed, it says, it knows no limitations, has no fears, and recognizes no such word as impossible, and performs no miracles.
Yeah.
So all of those things is like a culmination, right? You have to decide that and have faith that this is what I'm going to do, and I'm going to work really hard at it, right? But it doesn't perform miracles, so that's why you have to work hard. You know, it's not just going to fall into your lap.
Yeah. I think this is Andrew Carnegie was telling Napoleon Hill, if I believe, I have to reread it, but there's a part in here that says, it seems to me that there is an opportunity which should challenge an ambitious young man of your type, but ambition alone is not enough for this task which I have suggested. One who undertakes it will have to earn his living from another source. Generally, those who have contributed to civilization through work of this nature have had to wait 100 or so years of their own funerals. I don't think most people take on tasks like that. I think we understand that we're not going to be here for that long, so we're trying to like be as prosperous and abundant for as long as we can on this planet.
Yeah.
And I think people like Napoleon Hill last so long through hundreds of years, like, is because they create some work or some body that can be replicated and systematized for hundreds of people.
Yeah.
Even if you're not trying to become like quote unquote a millionaire, you can be very successful if you develop just this mentality. You'll be able to go through anything. And I thought it was just like where Carnegie points out, but ambition alone is not enough. It's like you can be ambitious all you want. You know what I mean? That shit's gonna come to a halt if someone tells you no. Like 100 people tell you no, are you still gonna be ambitious? No, but you can still have faith. You can still have faith that the next one will be yes.
Reminds me of the motivation versus dedication thing. You know? Like motivation is, it's a feeling, it comes and goes, and then dedication is sort of
It's
more
like a permanent.
Yeah, it's a straight line. And it's always going to be going one direction versus you could lose all of your motivation tomorrow if something happened.
What I definitely heard was like the faith versus fear is the devil or the angel and devil on your shoulder.
Yeah.
Like that's what it reminded me of.
Yeah.
Hell yeah, dude. Angel and devil on your shoulder.
Yeah, like I just think of like movies that have like the little like Emperor's New Groove.
Yep.
What's his name?
Yeah.
Cusco or Gronk? Or the dude where he had different like angels and the devil. And so it's like a little tiny voice, and that's what I think about though. That's what comes to mind.
Yeah. So really, that's what this chapter was about. Is kind of him having faith in the goal, that purpose he found. Right. And then figuring out what the other self was. Yeah. You know?
Yeah. I liked how when he did start listening to the commanding voice, from the faith-based entity, that the commanding voice was very, I guess, practical. It was like sort of ask questions later, like focus on what you have to do now. And it required action. I think it was like a quick jumping into like what he has to do, just because that's the nature of kind of getting to where you want to go anyways. Like you kind of have to act now, have a plan, but don't get caught up in the very, I guess, small things.
Yeah, don't even get caught up in the plan, because the plan may fall through. What was that? What did we watch? They said that like don't create a plan because the plan is gonna like fail.
Oh, Parasite?
Yeah, Parasite, the movie.
Yeah.
He says that to his son, huh?
Yeah. I thought it was also interesting where, you know, he's the fear where he's talking about the old self. You know, there's like the other self, which is the new self, but then the old self, the fear-based self, is not dead. It's simply been dethroned in your mind. And in order to kind of gain control of your thoughts, you got to keep the doors to your mind tightly closed against all thoughts which seek to limit you in any manner whatsoever. And you'll sort of guard your thoughts. And it made me think of, we talked about the garden, I think in the first book, right? 7 Habits.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Where he talks about, watering your garden, or, taking care of the garden, which is your mind, and safekeeping it. This made me think of the same thing. I'm starting to see a commonality across all books that thoughts alone are very powerful. And, the fear-based self is just another version of yourself that exists within you, but that one is leading the caboose. It's like, the caboose.
Well, I think like the Think and Grow Rich book, which was his first book.
Yeah.
I mean, like that's the archetype of all self-help books. So like any self-help book that we read is just like a different version of that book, and someone wrote about it.
Yeah. I read that book when I was like 22, 23. Mm-hmm. I have it up on my shelf. It's pretty good.
I haven't read it.
Pretty good.
Yeah, that's good.
That's why I wanted to read this book. It was been in my list since then. It's like, oh man, this is a pretty cool author.
Yeah, I think towards the end of this chapter, or not even the end, but this chapter was kind of small compared to yours. Was 50s, ours was 30.
Yeah, like
but towards the middle of the chapter, he talks about like I think he's paraphrasing, or maybe it might be it's someone speaking. I can't remember, but he says if he thinks accurately and persistent, he discovers that so-called failure usually is nothing more than a signal to rearm himself with a new plan or purpose. And then later in the chapter, he mentions when men are forced to change their habits and to think their way out of difficulty. And like there's statements along this chapter that align to what Carnegie said, like you're going to be pressed up against emergency, and you necessarily can't physically fight your way out of it. You have to use your mind to think about it. If you look around today, most jobs in labor today, like most paying jobs, you're using your mind. it's not so labor intensive back in like how the 1910s or 1920s or
Yeah.
you'd be working
Industrial
yeah,
revolution.
like stuff like that. Most of the stuff is mental state where you're using your I guess your brain to like
engineers.
fucking science, like
Yeah.
but even like graphic design, you can't manually, like you can become a painter, but there's technology that allows you to,
Yeah.
and that technology was built behind someone having to think really hard.
I think about it like problem solving.
Yeah,
It's
problem solving.
Like hard problems that you need to solve. That's like
Yeah.
where the money's at. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like mentally, I guess.
Yeah, that emergency statement. Have you guys had to face that yet?
Yeah, I think not hard, like not super hardcore, but like I've had some feeling of that, like
I
my
need to
back
move
against the
Yeah.
I think that's where I get caught up in like working so much because it's like I don't want to have to be backed up against the wall. But I know emergencies can come like fast though.
When you had that
Yeah.
emergency, did you experience a life-changing sort of direction getting taken into your life? Like when you had that analysis paralysis, was that the turning point enough for you to like at least have a clear like path? Sort of like how, you know, Napoleon Hill has at the end of the chapter. It leaves off right before he's like figured something out about the other self. And anybody can answer.
It's kind of hard because like I don't think of the things I've gone through as like emergency, because when I hear emergency, I think it's like it's fucking on or off. Like it's
Yeah, okay.
it's yes
It's
or
do or
it's
die.
not. Yeah, do or die.
Yeah.
Right.
It's
That's
there's
good,
no
yeah.
gray space, and so I feel like there's been times in my life where I felt like there's been a
You've had
on
to
or
act.
off, but there's gray space in between that. It's like not
I see.
like, so it's like I wouldn't consider those like emergencies like 911,
Yeah.
but there's definitely been times where like it's shaped me to get where I'm going.
When I first, excuse me, coming back from Washington the second time, it was that situation where it was like I have two paths in front of me,
Yeah.
right? And it was stay here in Washington, try and make that happen, come back to square one. This is one in my life where I was like, look, I need to go back and regather. And because of that, I am who I am today. I think it would have been a different Jay if I had stayed in Washington, you know, trying
Right.
to make things happen like in a different manner than I would have liked my life to turn out, the way I'm looking at that. So in that minute decision, like it took a while to think about it, but when it came down to it, it was like, this is what I have to do.
Right.
That did significantly change the way, the outcome of how I am today.
Right.
So there is definitely, I've been face to face with that. But when it's emergency, like you said, the word comes with a connotation of like do or die. In that sense, it wasn't do or die. It's choose the best Jay you want to be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What can you make these look like? Which
Yeah.
one has more potential?
Yeah, and to put yourself in that position, I think like what the emergency, I guess how I put it into concept is like, how are you best thinking about your situation? Because you have to think on how to get out of your situation.
Right.
You have to use your mind. You can't just like, no, bitch is not real. I'm fucking walking out this bitch and it changes tomorrow. Like, you have to think about.
Or running away from.
Yeah. So just trying to be the best version of yourself. But at that time, like, did they mention that was this in the middle of the Depression?
It hit him right at 1929, right when he was published the book a year after the book came out.
Okay.
Something
Because I
like that.
remember seeing that. I can't remember where I read it.
Yeah. So he also says here, just one last thing about the other self. It always finds a way to accomplish desired ends. So I wanted to ask you guys, what is your most pronounced desire? Because our actions are conducted by what we want. So if
Right.
you could define one of your desires that is like a real big driving force for you in life,
Yeah.
that's kind of what I want to know. If you know
The
that.
first thing that comes to my mind is I want to become a creative director, like as my desire. That's what I want.
Okay.
Because of what I've read and what I've studied is they're great leaders and for what they do in the creative department. Even if you're a great designer, it doesn't necessarily mean that's like, you know, that creative director is the next thing and then you've made it in your field. It just requires it's a different challenge, and I think that's the challenge that I want for myself right now, is to be able to just learn how to be a better leader in my career and establish like great relationships along the way, so I can be trusted to do the work that I do want to do. And like, you know,
So when you look back on it, do your decisions at work and actions at work follow that?
I think so. I think I'm trying. As of recently, I've been really paying attention to the relationship aspect of with my employees, and understanding that I can't just be creative director and people are just gonna be like, oh, he got the promotion, like I'm gonna listen to, and consider what he's saying more. They can do that with me right now, just if I'm like, I guess, establishing those relationships right now.
Okay.
Yeah, like more collaboration, more networking, and not just the mundane work stuff, like how are you, like how are things going in the company, what are you doing this weekend type of, you know what I mean? Just like getting interested in them.
Yeah.
Yeah, builds trust.
Yeah.
How about you guys?
I would definitely say like I do have like a very, very strong desire of becoming I guess in simple terms, like a bank or like some sort of a financial like stronghold for like not only my family, but for like friends, and like just a very like a strong foundation of like, I guess you could say like just money.
Okay.
And so like if it's like through,
You want to be wealthy?
well, yeah, wealthy, but it's not just like being wealthy. It's about providing like information and knowledge behind like the monetary, fiscal stuff behind like our country that I can give to like my family and friends through like a service.
So like,
and then like my
education in a way?
Yeah.
Okay.
But I want to also be that access to funds.
Oh, like if
you're like, if someone came to like my brother or like sister, aunt, or someone came like, can I borrow this amount of money and I'll pay this amount back? Like I'll be able to set contracts through our company or through our firm or something. I feel like that's a real strong desire of mine, because I understand a lot of like wealth and control of your life is driven by your monetary reward in life. And so I think if I have access to, I guess, a great amount of monetary funds, then it gives a lot of my friends and family the things they're capable to do. Like if it's building a business, if it's fucking wanting a single family home, a multi-family home, or, you know what I mean? I can fund those things or partnering them with something. So I think it's just
wealthy and financial education.
Yeah.
Nice.
Desire. Okay. Yeah. How about you, John?
What was the question again?
What is your most pronounced desire, or one of your most pronounced desires, if you're willing to share?
I would say, I want to show people, for me especially, because like I deal with high school kids and stuff, that going to university isn't the only way to have a life. And like I think I've lived like a pretty untraditional life compared to like post graduation with like my career, what I did after, and like what I'm doing now. And that like that on top of like, despite any like all things going bad, like you can still choose to like be healthier than you were yesterday, and you can still choose to like be happy. So like my big thing is like I want to show people there's a lot of different ways to have life. There's a lot of ways you can cut life up. It's not just this one way. And that's like my big thing that I like to push. I'd say is
Yeah.
Sweet. Yeah.
What about you, Jay?
I would say education as well. Like I always want to be learning something. So that's a big one of mine. I feel like people stop learning things and decline starts to happen. I just want to continue to learn things, because I feel like if we had 1,000 years, we wouldn't have enough time to learn everything. So there's always something to learn.
Yeah.
Right. So that's really it. Let's see. Okay. There is one difference between our editions in the books, right?
Okay.
So inside my book, right where your guys' ended, it pushes into the idea of an invisible council. So on his invisible council, right, he has Andrew Carnegie, he's got Abraham Lincoln, he's got Henry Ford, Napoleon Bonaparte. I can get the rest of the names, but he has a council of all these members that he'll have a meeting with in his mind. And that, while that sounds kind of out there, he says he has them because they have traits that he likes or attributes he wants to embody, advice that he wants to hear. So inside his head, he has this council that he goes and talks to. And so I was wondering if you guys had to choose somebody that's a council member to discuss with, who would it be?
In my head.
Yeah.
You know, one thing I want to say is I was listening to a Lex Friedman podcast, and he had this philosopher on,
Yeah.
and the guy made a joke. He's like, all my best friends are dead. Because he
gonna-
talks about, like, his best friends are, like, these people who wrote these books,
Right.
you know? And, like, that's where he gets all of his advice from. But, yeah, it's
Nice.
the same concept.
Right. Yeah, exactly. So if you had to choose one in your head, think through, like, alive or dead. He had 50 by the end, right? They said in my chapter, it said it started with 10, right? And then by the end, it progressed to like 50. So you can just choose one.
I would say David Goggins for sure.
I was thinking
Like
it too.
David Goggins, like
Okay.
having someone to like, not just physical stuff, but just like he knows every sort of thought that enters my mind. He can discern like what's bullshit, what's not. Like
Yeah.
not just bullshit, like saying, "Oh, this is irrelevant."
Yeah,
like
yeah.
he's not making like I wouldn't give that access to that thought, but it's just more of like, this is kind of waste of time. Don't bullshit yourself. Look at this shit. Like, you know what I mean? That him sitting in my mind
Yeah.
would be like, fucking,
That would be awesome.
it'd be crazy. But I think mentioning what John said, like I was having this thought today because I heard that podcast, but it was a few days ago. But I had this thought, it was like, I always hear people talk about, oh, you are who you surround yourself with, like the 5 best friends, like that stuff. I was like, what if you just create the people in your mind, or create people that you want to associate in your mind? And then why do you have to be physically around 5 people or 10 people, right? Like, can't you just become that person, like through readings or videos, or
You could.
like Lex Friedman, like he describes like all of his best friends are dead because it's like philosophers.
Right.
And it's like, I see Lex Friedman as like a friend, but I've never met this man. Like I hear
Dude,
him
He
talk.
talks about that. He's like, people meet me. He's like, and just their tone, like their energy. It's like we're like longtime friends. He's
Yeah.
like, but it's been a one-way connection. Like they know me and I don't know them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Dude,
It's
you know
true.
what?
It's
Oh, go ahead.
crazy.
It's true. Like there's a couple of people who podcast, and like I feel like I know them just because like I listen to them so often. You know?
Right.
Dude,
Joe Rogan's.
I just realized like I do that like with you guys a lot. Like I'm like, what would Jay do in this situation?
Really?
What would John do?
That's
Or like how would Devin think? Like I'm always thinking about that stuff. I just found that out right now. Like, you know, because I think, you know, you surround yourself with people that you want to like, you're doing it for a reason, right?
Mm-hmm.
You want to take their qualities and learn from them. So I think I do that with like all of you guys, and you know, like my dad. And I guess if we're going like people that aren't directly like in our life, you know, like JBP, you know, like David Goggins, Jeff Logan, a lot.
Yeah,
I'm-
definitely.
You got a big council already.
Yeah, like these are people I'm like, okay,
Yeah.
you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah, that's sick. Like I don't know, that's that's sick.
Yeah, I've never thought about it like this, but if you think about it, your brain's taking in information, sight, all your different senses, right? Something comes to you, the person at the front of your brain grabs a piece of paper and it's a memo, right? Before you go straight to doing an action about it, take it and put it on the desk of fucking David Goggins and put it on the desk of JBP and just keep sliding it down and hear what they have to say.
It's like a fucking meeting with all
And then
these
you're
people on a
like,
table.
sit there and you're like, this is what I'm going to do. And then you put it in the action box. Like, that's the part that I struggle with sometimes. It's like, comes in and then it can either go just storage or action right away.
Yeah.
Sometimes I don't think too much though of like how many people I'm trying to embody. It's just like I think for this person,
Yeah.
this should be the perfect situation
Okay.
to do that. So I don't like kind of have it edited by,
Yeah.
you know, if it were going down the line,
Yeah.
you know what I mean?
Like when I'm hiking, I try to tap into that David Goggins thing, you know?
Yeah.
Like when I'm hiking, literally I went on a hike on Saturday and they were like, behind me, they're like, yo, take a break. I'm like, you gotta find that dog. And just kept going, just fucking kept hiking my legs. But I am glad I hiked with you guys because I was like, damn, I hike slow. But then I'm hiking with these people. And it was just like, I had to keep taking breaks.
Yeah.
I was like,
Yeah.
damn, big difference.
Yeah.
But yeah, and in those moments, I turned that on. Like me and my girlfriend went to Pinnacles National Park not too long
Yeah.
ago, and we were hiking up, and she was just not having the hills. And I was like, I kept telling her, you got to find that dog in you. You just got to find that dog.
It's coming out.
You
Yeah.
reach down in there and find it because we're at the point now where you have to walk back anyway. There's no point in complaining.
Yeah.
That's
Remember when we
fucking-
ran? We decided to run 6 miles
6
on like
point,
the shittiest day for air quality in Fresno
Yeah.
ever. And I remember calling Jay in the morning. I was like, the air quality is bad, bro. And he's like, what would Goggins do? And I'm like, you're right. Let's do it.
Let's go. Let's go, dude. Literally, the sky was orange.
Dude,
it was so bad. That was a bad
trash,
decision,
man.
but hey, what would Goggins do, you know?
Yeah, I think I keep David Goggins' voice in my head like a lot of like for everything, like for a lot of like I think that's
some
what
people
helps me
probably
get
look at you
to it.
crazy, man.
Probably, I don't know, like getting to the gym, bro, like waking up in the morning 5 o'clock and
Yeah,
like sleeping in the bed and like
Yeah.
you need voices like that in your
That's
head.
facts, dude.
Like,
That's facts. Yeah, that's a good one. I think that's a good one. I was thinking like of all the authors we've hit,
Or
you know,
even, like-
we haven't hit enough biographies. I'm
yeah,
thinking,
like
you know?
autobiographies.
Yeah.
Like, because I think when we read David Goggins, I know we're sort of veering off topic right now,
Yeah.
but when we read David Goggins, I think we all recognized that all of our physical attributes started to rise tremendously.
Oh yeah,
Like we were like
run.
run,
Gym.
fucking workout, like
Yeah.
doing crazy, and it was like
We haven't hit that in a while.
yeah. And I think that book was incorporated through like every aspect of our life.
It's kind of dwindled though.
Yeah. And because we're reading stuff that's like more
Different.
mental, like building the capacity.
Think for
to,
yourself, homie. You know what
Yeah.
I'm saying?
yeah, John's a
Think for
fucking
yourself,
dog.
that
dog.
shit. Not one thing physical has gone down over here. We
Yeah.
amp it up every day. I've anything I've added since then.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm
Same. I've
consistent,
been-
but we haven't been like, let's go run 10 miles, you know?
Oh yeah, definitely. And I think that definitely, at least that book when we read that shit together, it was like, shit was crazy.
Dude, yeah, like now it'd be a whole thing. Let's organize this and let's run like that. All right, bro. Let's fucking go on Saturday for a 10-mile run. You know what I'm saying?
Jeez.
I'm down any day.
10
All right,
miles.
bro. Give me a little bit of your Saturday morning then.
Dude, I'm down. I've been running fucking like X Games mode recently, so
Okay.
I'm fucking ready.
All right, cool. Sounds good. Freaking. Besides that, you guys have anything you want to mention about chapter 1 or your thoughts on the book? What do you think you're gonna take from it?
I'm excited for when we get into the discussion with the devil, and
Nice.
I think we're gonna have more interesting discussions. You know, we're still getting into the groove of the book. You know, the first chapter, but it seems interesting so far, just because we've already kind of centered around a topic that I think is going to set the tone for the rest of the book, which is the other version of you, or maybe it's the version of you right now that's operating life through the eyes of fear
Mediocrity.
versus faith, right? So this book's going to talk about fear, a lot of fear that maybe everybody watching this shares to some degree.
Cool.
Yeah.
So
you guys?
for me,
Yeah.
a little challenge to you guys too, because like for me, like I'm more associated not with fear, but with like laziness. Okay.
Mm.
And like count how many times a week you you listen to your other self, or you get like notifications from yourself. Like this week from reading the book, I got like 2 notifications. Like one, I was doing leg day and I was doing heavy back squat, and then like I was gonna be done, and something told me you should now do a whole thing of front squats. And I was like, and I hate, like, if you know me, I don't like doing front squats. I'm like very anti front squat. And I fucking did
It's
it.
the
and I was
wrist,
pissed.
dog.
I was
I
like
was
upset
pissed.
the whole time, but I was happy that I did it. And I was like, someone somewhere in my brain told me to do it. Like it was the right call, you know?
Yeah.
I think so. And then the running thing today, you know? So I was like 2 times this week when like I like got info from the other world, and I was like, okay, do it. And I like,
Nice.
maybe it's easier for me to listen to things that are for like our physical challenges because I like them, you know?
Mm-hmm.
But I'll try to be open for more
Yeah,
challenges that aren't physical.
that's what I was gonna say. Is I think, you know, we're gonna gravitate toward the physical ones because it's like, I know I should do that set, or no, I should do this, but maybe
It's
there's,
just what-
you know, the mental ones are something we could try.
Yeah, because I
don't know.
think physical ones are going to be like longer. I don't even know how to like voice it. Like I guess they're just going to live with us longer because they're so like we can
Right, I know what you're
adapt to
saying.
each other.
Yeah.
Like we can like, oh, I just did this. Like it's so universal that I can tell somebody and they can go try it or they can go do it. Compared to like career fields, like I can't be like, yo, I worked for like 20 hours doing this specific thing. Like you should go try this. It's like I
Yeah.
can work for 20 hours, but I can't do exactly what you're.
The measurement of success with physical training, I think, is very like apparent. You know,
Yeah.
I can lift more, I can run more, but maybe switching careers for this or doing something like that maybe requires more of like,
Yeah.
where's the fear at? Where's the fear at right now?
Because that's what I recognize in all these like successful, like I say, podcasts or businessmen, women, like physical attributes just stay with them. Like Andy Versailles, fucking Joe Rogan, even Lex Friedman. Like, bro, this man's a fucking like black belt, jiu-jitsu or something or some sort of martial arts. But it's
Yeah.
like, dude, they're old, like grown. Like they're not like 28. They're fucking 34 and higher. Like, you know what I mean? Like they're still at it. Like they're fucking 18, 19 years old. Like, so I don't think that ever leaves you unless you want it to leave you. You know what I mean? I think that's what John was talking about, is like the laziness.
Like they develop the hell out of it.
Yeah,
Now
and it's
just
like if you let that
unnatural.
go, it's like you're gonna go into a deep depression or deep like dark side of you that you don't want to
Not
experience.
John. It's amped up all the way.
Fucking
Going crazy.
110.
All right, I'm gonna
And
take
Ace.
us out. Thank you guys so much for tuning in to another installment of Paradigm Podcast. We hope you enjoyed the show. Before you take off, make sure you drop a comment down below. Are you reading along? Go and buy the book. We really hope you do. We're excited to see where it goes. So like the video, subscribe down below, and then click the little button. And then all the information you'll need is down in the description below. Before you take off, again, remember that who you are now equals who you'll be tomorrow. Peace.
Peace.
Peace.